She looked at me one last time, touched my hand, and said nothing. I thought it meant goodbye. It took me 3 years to understand it meant something else. If you've ever lost someone, not to death, but to distance, to silence, to a decision you didn't see coming, you already know how this feels. You replay the last moments over and over, searching for something you missed. This is my story. And maybe by the end of it, you'll understand your own sign a little better. Her name was Ariba. We met in university, in the kind of ordinary way most real love stories begin. A shared class, a borrowed pen, a conversation that wasn't supposed to last more than 5 minutes, but somehow lasted 3 hours. She had this habit of tilting her head slightly when she was really listening to you, like she wanted to make sure she didn't miss a single word. I noticed it the first day. I fell for it slowly, the way you fall for someone real, not all at once, but in small moments you don't recognize as falling until you're already there. We were together for 4 years. 4 years of late-night phone calls, of her sending me voice notes just to say she was thinking of me, of small fights over nothing and long talks about everything. I thought I knew her completely. I thought 4 years was enough to understand a person fully. I was wrong not because she was hiding something dark, but because I never learned to listen to the things she didn't say. Ariba was not the type to complain. If something hurt her, she would go quiet instead of arguing. At the time, I mistook that silence for peace. I thought she's not saying anything, so everything must be fine. I didn't yet understand that silence, for some people, is not the absence of pain, it's the presence of pain they decided not to share with you anymore. In our final year together, I got busy. Not busy in the dramatic sense, no affair, no big betrayal, nothing a movie would make into a twist. Just ordinary busy. A new job. Late hours. Weekend plans that kept shifting. I told myself she understood because she never said otherwise. I told myself we were fine because nothing was visibly broken. But looking back now, I can see the small cracks I walked past without noticing. She stopped asking what time will you be free and started saying it's okay, don't worry about it, and I heard those words as reassurance. I didn't hear them as her giving up on being prioritized. 3 weeks before she left, we met for what I thought was a normal dinner. She was quieter than usual. At one point, in the middle of the conversation, she reached across the table and touched my hand. She didn't say anything. She just held it there for a few seconds, looked at me, and then pulled her hand back and continued eating like nothing had happened. I remember thinking it was sweet. A small romantic gesture. I smiled at her, she smiled back, and we moved on to talking about something else entirely. I don't even remember what. I didn't know that was the sign. 2 weeks later, she told me she needed space. Not dramatically, no shouting, no crying in front of me. She said it calmly, the way she said most difficult things. She said she felt like she had been slowly disappearing in the relationship, and she didn't know how to say it without it turning into a fight, so she had stopped trying to say it at all. I was stunned. I asked her why she never told me sooner. And she said something I didn't understand then, but I understand painfully well now. I did tell you. I told you with my hand on the table. I told you every time I said it's okay. You just never asked what okay actually meant. We broke up a month later. Not because we stopped loving each other, I think, in some strange way. We both still did, but because she had reached a point where she couldn't keep loving someone who didn't notice when she was hurting. For a long time after that, I was angry. Not at her, at myself, mostly. But I didn't have the emotional vocabulary yet to understand that. I told myself she should have said something clearer. I told myself I wasn't a mind reader. I told myself a lot of things that made me feel less responsible. It took almost 3 years. 3 years of watching other relationships. Of talking to my own parents about their marriage. Of slowly growing up for me to understand what that touch on the table actually meant. It wasn't romantic. It was a goodbye she didn't know how to say out loud yet. It was her trying one last time to reach me before she gave up trying completely. She wasn't asking me to notice her hand. She was asking me to notice her. I think about my parents' marriage sometimes when I think about this. My mother has her own version of "it's okay." I watched my father, for years, take her silence as agreement, the same way I once did with Ariba. It wasn't until much later that I understood that in many relationships, romantic or otherwise, the people who love us the most quietly often show us the truth long before they say it. We're just not trained to look. I reached out to Ariba almost 3 years after we broke up. Not to ask her back. I want to be honest about that, because this isn't a story with a neat romantic ending. I reached out because I needed to tell her that I finally understood. I told her about the hand on the table. I told her I finally knew what it meant. She was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "I'm glad you understand now. I hope it helps you love the next person better." That sentence stayed with me longer than almost anything else in that relationship, because that's really what this story is about. It's not really about Ariba, or about me, or even about that one dinner. It's about how many of us walk through our relationships, romantic, familial, even friendships, assuming that love has to be loud to be real. That if someone truly needs us, they'll say it clearly, they'll demand our attention, they'll make it impossible to miss. But that's not how most people who love us actually behave. Most people give us small signs first. A quieter voice. A hand reaching for yours across the table. A don't worrying about it that isn't really about not worrying at all. And if we're not paying attention, if we're too busy, too distracted, too confident that everything is fine because nothing has technically gone wrong, we miss it. I don't tell you this story to make you feel guilty about your own relationships. I tell you this because maybe, right now, someone in your life is giving you a version of that same sign. A parent who says "I'm fine" a little too quickly. A partner who stops asking for your time because they've quietly decided your time isn't something they can count on. A friend who goes quiet instead of arguing. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to start asking the question Ariba wished I had asked her. What do you actually mean when you say it's okay? If this story reminded you of someone, a partner, a parent, a friend, maybe today is the day you finally ask them that question. Not because something is necessarily wrong, but because sometimes the people we love the most are trying to tell us something without saying it out loud, and the only thing standing between understanding and 3 years of regret is us actually paying attention. If this story touched you, I'd love to hear yours. Comment below or send us your story, because sometimes telling it is the first step to finally understanding it.